Yes, guys, and welcome to lesson number 5. Now, we're going to focus on inbound setting and social engagement today. So, inbound setting, we're going to be prioritizing more the inbound DM role in this session. We will get onto inbound calling as well as cold calling in some of the later sessions, but today we're going to prioritize inbound DM setting. Now, inbound DM setting is a slightly complicated one because I've always preferred outbound. I always think outbound is the way to build the best sales reps. However, there are a lot of really good inbound roles out there where you can make a lot of money. However, with an inbound role, it's slightly different around this theme around authenticity because it's harder to be your true authentic self when you need to instead step into the founder's shoes because you're on someone else's account, right? And naturally, the people that you're going to be engaging with are going to be those who have engaged with the founder or are expecting to speak with the founder or the person who owns that account. So you need to somewhat step into their shoes a little bit whilst maintaining authenticity. So I'm going to show you exactly how you can do that. Now, DM setting on someone else's account, you need to be navigating inbound leads, so people who have reached out to you. You need to be managing content engagements, so understanding who's liking the reels or the posts or the stories, who's commenting, and even having outbound conversations. Because even in an inbound role, you still want to have control over your pipeline, right? You don't just want to rely on people to come to you. You also want to be able to reach out to other people. So in these situations, you need to play the role of the account you're on, but don't be afraid to reach out to other people. Have those conversations. Reach out to other people in that space who may be following other accounts, just like we spoke about on last session where we spoke about outbound setting. Now, in order to really step into the founder's shoes and be authentically the business owner, you need to become the business owner. So you need to mimic things like their tonality, their dialect, their energy. If they're US based, then you need to use a bit more US slang or US terminology. If they're UK based, then use a bit more of a UK terminology, and show their energy. They might be a very high energy person, and if that's not reflected in their DMs, it's going to throw a lot of people off. So you need to mimic that energy. So the way to do this is you study past conversations. So look at some of the chats in the DMs that they've actually had with other people, so you get an understanding of how they communicate over text. You want to observe their content, so you know how they speak, what their energy levels are like, what their tonality is like. Learn about their story, because naturally you're going to get questions. A lot of the time the prospect may ask, oh, what's your experience in this space, or what did you do in this particular remit? And you need to know the answers to that. So know how long they've been in the space for. Know what their journey in order to get involved in that space looked like. Know a bit about their background, what school they went to, how they studied, what they studied. Whatever it is, you need to have at least a list of things about that person, their experiences, their goals, anything that gives you an understanding of who they are. So the best way to do that is to have that conversation with your client, with your business, with the business owner, and just get an understanding of them, right? Ask them for a doc which gives a lot of details of their background, of their story. But then also, they should be putting out content anyway, so just study their content and you'll learn a lot about them. I know, for example, we don't have setters on myself and Callum's accounts, but we deliver our story in a lot of our content. So our team know exactly who we are, what our journey looks like. So you want to do the same with your inbound setting, basically, because you need to essentially feel comfortable about opening up to someone else on someone else's behalf, if that makes sense. So you need to be able to open up as though you're the business owner to a prospect, even though you are not the business owner. So you need to build seemingly authentic relationships, although it's not authentic to you, it's authentic to the business owner. You're just carrying that out. So it's a slightly different responsibility, but that's how you need to navigate it in order to be successful. Now, you need to understand some of the market differences here, because depending on who you're targeting, you're going to come across a myriad of different types of leads, right? Because if you're reaching out to people who are familiar with the business, with the online business space, they may already assume you're a setter, right? So for example, I've reached out to people on my own account and they automatically thought I was a setter because I'm targeting other setters, closers, people interested in the online space. So they are aware that typically businesses have setters on their accounts. Obviously, I confirmed that I was not a setter, and we managed to continue the conversation. But there is that skepticism around that. So you need to ensure that this is unnoticeable. So even if you're able to continue a conversation and build a relationship easily, you need to kind of disappear into the shadows a little bit so you don't seem like a setter. Because realistically, if you are a setter and someone asks, are you a setter? I think the best thing to do is be honest. Right? I don't think you lie and say you're the business owner, because that creates a dark cloud over the conversation, over the business, because now it's not authentic. Now it's clearly not authentic. So in order to maintain authenticity, you don't have to tell them that you're a setter. But if they ask, I would say, yeah, I'm working as a setter on this person's account. Make it seem super reasonable. Ask them why they would not want to talk to a setter, and kind of just take the conversation down that route. But the best bet is to try and go unnoticed with this, obviously. So how do you turn inbound attention into booked meetings? Because that's the goal, right? It's an inbound opportunity. You need to turn already, there's attention already there. They've either got a big account, they get swamped with DMs, they get tons of likes, tons of comments on their posts. That's attention. There's a lot of attention. However, there's still a strategy around converting that attention into meetings, because there might just be people who are interested in the content. It might just be people who are fascinated about what this person's doing. Maybe they've got a big brand and they're just keen on getting to have a conversation with them. So firstly, you need to qualify who's who. Like, are they actually interested in the service, or are they just there for clout? And then you need to convert that attention into an actual meeting. So how do we do this? Well, the reality is inbound conversations aren't much different to outbound. So I would definitely go back and look at the previous training and use that as your methodology around converting meetings. And in the next training, where we discuss more about conversation flows, I give you a shit ton of examples around how to open up questions, how to ask discovery questions, and how to really lead the conversation. But not only that, I'll also give you guys access to a worksheet. You'll have that as part of the program, which gives you basically a cheat sheet list of a ton of questions, conversation starters, and absolutely everything you need. So you're going to have everything there. However, navigating inbound conversations are just like outbound. So the only difference is the way you open up that conversation. So outbound leads are cold. Naturally, you want to start focusing on starting conversations and actually learning about them, whereas inbound leads are already warm. So you just want to focus on what encouraged them to reach out, or what encouraged them to engage in whatever way that they engaged. So starting an inbound conversation could look something like this. You want to be like, hey John, it's great to connect with you. What caught your interest about X? Right? Now this could apply whether they've DM'd you, whether they've followed, whether they've liked a post, whatever. Hey John, noticed you're liking a few of our reels. How are you currently X? Now this can be, how are you currently working out if you're a fitness coach? You know, what's your current workout split? I saw you liked our reel about workout splits. What's your current workout split? Or, hey John, pleased to see you opt in. Are you currently X? Or, you know, pleased to see you opt into our, to our mastermind about how to master remote sales and create freedom. Are you currently in remote sales at the moment, or just looking to get started? This is how you can continue those conversations and position it directly to start a sales conversation, because they're already interested. So the way to build the relationship is actually just asking what prompted them to take action. It's actually very simple. Now this is naturally going to open up the conversation, and they're going to want to speak to you, right? So the next thing is kind of understanding the psychology around engagement, because like I mentioned before, there's a number of different ways that they can engage with an inbound page. It could be a DM, it could be liking a post, it could be making a comment. So understanding that is really important. So you want to get an understanding of buyer intent signals. Now when you're inbound setting, you don't just want to focus on the leads that are coming to you. Like I've always said, you need to be able to look for opportunities in the account and really expand on your pipeline. So because of that, understanding buyer intent signals and understanding why someone is engaging is going to be key and crucial to build upon that engagement. You need to know why in order to act on it in the most respectful and responsible way. So the first thing is direct messages. Now, direct messages are by far your warmest leads, right? They're so warm, they're literally reaching out to you because they're interested in something. They may have a question, they may be interested in moving forward with the program, whatever that is. They are your warmest leads because they're contacting you. So what you want to do here is you want to understand how to instantly qualify them and get them booked in. There's no fluff. They're reaching out to you, so you need to understand what they're reaching out to you for. If it's anything to do with your program, qualify them, get them locked in. This should be the easiest booked call ever. So next is new followers. They have seen enough value from your page in order for them to follow for more. So obviously most online business pages are very niche specific. So their follower lists are going to be people who are naturally interested in what they do. Now, new followers are going to be your warmest because they've just recently followed, so acting upon that interest as soon as possible is going to be crucial. However, going through current followers and reaching out is not a bad idea either, and it's definitely something you should do. So for example, if you're an online fitness coach, you're likely going to have a following of people who want to get fitter because you're posting content about how to get fitter. So they're engaging with that content enough for them to follow you, so it's worth contacting them because they are a lead. Now, the best way to start that conversation is to simply ask why they followed, right? So easy. Hey John, appreciate the follow. What was the reason for the follow? Did something catch your eye? That simple. Keep it casual, keep it conversational, start the conversation and just see where it goes. Now, comments, they're slightly less warm than, in fact, I would say they're on par with new followers because they're actually taking the time out to comment on something. Now, they might not be following you already. They might be following you. Either way, they agree enough and likely trust your methodologies enough for them to comment, for them to share insight. Now, obviously, if this is a positive comment, then they're a good lead. If it's a negative comment, then maybe not so much. But the way you want to navigate that is by simply engaging with the comment. Like it, respond to it, then DM with a more specific response to that comment. So you can ask something like the comment, thanks for the comment or whatever. Hey hey John, I appreciate your support. What about the post resonated with you most? Now, you always want to end on a question. Otherwise, they've got no reason to respond to it. Every single question, every single message you send needs to be caveated with a question. And this is how you continue conversations while maintaining authority. You get them to speak because you ask the questions and they answer. However, you control the conversation because you're the one asking the questions. Now, you might come across a few situations where they ask questions back. Now, don't ignore them when they ask those questions. Answer the questions, but always respond to your answer with another question to continue the conversation in a way that you want it to go. So this is the perfect example. Hey, I appreciate the support. What about the post resonated with you most? Now, likes, again, they are worth reaching out to. However, likes are slightly more cold. So you want to treat your likes more like a cold outreach, but there's still some warmth there. Right, so you're going to get a higher response rate through cold outreach and people who have liked your content than you would for people who haven't liked your content or haven't engaged with your content because they still know who you are. They know who you are, they liked your content, meaning they somewhat resonate with you. They're somewhat bought into you. So as much as you want to treat these leads like cold prospects, you are more likely to have a higher response rate because they have engaged with your content in the past, right? Now, qualifying and qualifying out. Now, this is important because from an inbound perspective, like I mentioned, you're going to get a lot of tire kickers. You're probably going to have a lot of people who may be somewhat interested in what you do, but they're kind of just there for the purpose of having a conversation with someone who has a maybe big influence, or they're just like trying to get some free tips, whatever that looks like. So you want to be specific about qualifying in and qualifying out and not wasting your time on people who are unqualified. So you want to focus on the right prospects. So you need to understand what defines a qualified lead. Now, this is very dependent on your market. It depends on who you would who would be qualified. Maybe you only work with men, so any women would naturally be qualified, or vice versa. Or maybe you're targeting people of a certain age. Maybe they're between 20 and 30, and then someone who's in their 50s may not qualify, or maybe you're targeting someone who's a lot older and then the younger people may not qualify. It's just about understanding who your ICP are and then asking the right questions in order for them to qualify. So what you want to do is focus on these industry average or industry specific qualified prospects, right? They fit the ICP, so they fit the age category, they fit the gender, they fit who you typically target. They have a pain, so they have a problem that you're able to solve. They have a goal and desire, so their goal and desire is usually a reflection of what's on the other side of their pain. So their pain might be the fact that they are overweight, but their goal and desire might be the fact that they want a six-pack. So the pain is in the way. The fact that they're overweight, they need to lose that weight in order to get the goal and desire. And your solution can help them, because your solution helps people who are overweight to get six-packs. And that is a qualified lead, put very simply. Now, an unqualified lead, very simply, obviously, they don't fit the ICP. They have no pain. So maybe this person already has a six-pack, so he's probably not going to be worth working with. Or the location. Now, location is very dependent on the offer. Some offers will work with pretty much anyone, but location is important, because if they're in a different time zone and you can't accommodate that, then they're probably not going to be a good fit. However, if a business is big enough and they are, they've got people working in a number of different time zones, then the location isn't massively a problem. However, there are some locations that people reside in that aren't financially qualified. So you may have a lot of people from India, for example. This is quite common in the space, that don't necessarily have the money, want the support, but don't necessarily have the money. So it's just about understanding where they're at financially. And if that is the case, don't rule them out completely, but I would ask more qualification questions around money. Like, do they have the capital to actually invest in changing this and solving this problem? If the answer is no, then unqualify them. Very simple. So that's just a few examples. Now, in order to find that all out, you simply need to ask open-ended discovery questions. Find the relevant information, find out whether or not that lead is qualified, and basically just everyone you speak with, your goal is to learn, right? Your goal is to understand who they are, what they want, where they are, if you can support them, if they fit the criteria, and if everything's a tick, qualify them in and move them on to the next stage, which is a call. And if they're not, then just move on and have a conversation somewhere else. Now, the goal, as mentioned in the previous session, is literally to understand where they are now, where they want to be, and what's holding them back. Once you can understand all of those three things, you'll know whether or not they're qualified, and you'll know whether or not to progress them to the next stage. Now, again, like I said, I will be providing a number of different examples of discovery questions on the next training, so make sure you take notes on that. But this is the sort of angle that you want to be taking. Now, the art of leading inbound conversations and building trust is an art, because like I said, yes, they're coming to you, yes, they've engaged with your page, but this engagement is one thing, attention is one thing. Being able to actually convert that attention into an outcome, which is a booked call, which is a sales outcome, then you need to be able to build trust and navigate the conversation effectively. So what you want to do here is, much like any conversation you have, your goal is to build relationships through authenticity and through authority. So how do you position yourself as the authority, and then how do you be as authentic as possible for them to trust you? So you must show that you're an expert. Now, obviously, the people are engaging with you already, so your expertise is kind of shown through the work that the work that your business is posting, the content that they're posting, the people that they're working with, the testimonials. So that's there. If you need to confirm that expertise, then just share some testimonials, valuable content assets, reels even, that you can share with them. Then you must ask powerful questions. So you need to ask questions that get them to open up so much that they are stunned by the way you are reaching out to them and engaging with them, because you just want to know as much information about them as possible. And finally, just be genuine. Be genuine. And like I said, I know this can be difficult when you're working on an inbound account, because it's hard to be genuine when it's not actually you. However, genuine, you can be genuine and mimic someone else, right? And as long as it doesn't come out and you're lying about you're lying and saying you're actually this person, then you can be genuine. So what I want you guys to do as the growth challenge for this training is simply continue the outreach from last week. Obviously, from the last training, I kind of walked you guys through the process of creating a prospect list and outreaching, prospecting, sending voice notes, videos, all of that sort of stuff. Continue doing that. Set yourself a deadline. If you are looking for an offer, set yourself a deadline to land an offer. Or if you're already on an offer, set yourself a deadline to when you've booked 2 times your current booking rate, right? So break this down. If you are looking for an offer, then set yourself a deadline for next week and say, by next week, I need to have an offer. And then do everything you can to make that offer. Reverse engineer as many messages you need to send, as many follow-ups as you need to send until you land that offer, and hold yourself accountable to achieving that goal. And if you're already on an offer, let's say, for example, you're booking 5 meetings in a week, right? Set yourself a deadline to book 10. Say next week I'm booking 10, right? And again, reverse engineer it. Look at what you've had to do to book 5 and then times that by 2. And maybe you need to work on your quality, so improve your quality. But do whatever it takes to 2x your current booking rate. Make sure you're tracking all of this outreach in your CRM, you're following up, and you're providing constant value. But that's it for this session. Like I mentioned, the next session is all about conversation flows. So be prepared to take a lot of notes. There's a lot of examples in there, and I look forward to seeing you on that session. Peace, guys.